Imagine a world where every vote truly counts, where your voice matters regardless of where you live. Sounds too good to be true? Well, that's exactly what proportional representation promises. Today, we're diving into the heated debate of electoral reform in the UK.
Oh, this is going to be fascinating. I've heard a lot about proportional representation lately, but I'm not sure I fully understand how it differs from our current system. Can you break it down for us?
Absolutely. So, the UK currently uses a system called First Past the Post, or FPTP. It's pretty straightforward. The candidate with the most votes in each constituency wins, even if they don't have a majority. But here's where it gets tricky. This can lead to some pretty significant discrepancies between votes cast and seats won.
Hmm, that does sound problematic. Do you have any examples of how this plays out in real elections?
Oh, absolutely. Let's look at the 2019 general election. The Conservatives secured 56% of parliamentary seats with only 43% of the vote. That's a pretty big gap, right?
Wow, that is a significant difference. So, how does proportional representation aim to fix this issue?
Well, PR systems aim to align seats more closely with vote shares. So if a party gets 25% of the vote, they'd get roughly 25% of the seats. It's a much more direct translation of votes into representation. But here's the kicker. It often leads to coalition governments, which some see as a drawback.
Oh, I see. But don't coalitions already happen under our current system sometimes?
Exactly. That's a common misconception. Remember the 2010 election? We ended up with a conservative liberal Democrat coalition, and that government made some pretty significant policy changes, particularly affecting vulnerable groups.
Right. I remember that period. It was tough for a lot of people. Can you give us an example of how those policies affected people on the ground?
Sure thing. One of the most impactful changes was requiring disabled people to contribute towards their care. This led to steep reductions in essential support services for many. In fact, there's a case of someone who personally lost over 400 pounds a month due to these reforms. That's a huge hit to take, especially for someone already dealing with the challenges of disability.
That's heartbreaking. It really brings home how these political decisions can have very real, very painful consequences for individuals.
Absolutely. And it wasn't just disabled individuals who were affected. Low-income families were hit hard by changes to tax credits and housing benefits. It really amplified financial insecurity across vulnerable groups.
So, if I'm understanding correctly, the argument is that PR might lead to policies that better reflect the will of the people. But how would that actually work in practice?
Great question. Let's break it down. In a PR system, parties often need to form coalitions to govern. This means they have to negotiate and compromise, which can lead to more balanced policies. For example, in Germany, which uses a form of PR, you often see grand coalitions between major parties, forcing them to find common ground.
That's interesting. But wouldn't that slow down decision-making?
Well, that's a common concern. But here's a thought experiment. Imagine you're planning a big family vacation. Would you rather quickly decide on a destination that only half the family wants, or take a bit more time to find a compromise that makes everyone happy? That's kind of what PR aims for in governance.
Oh, I like that analogy. It really puts it into perspective.
Exactly. Now, let's test your understanding. Can you think of 3 potential benefits of a PR system compared to FPTP? Take a moment to consider.
All right, well, I'd say first, it seems like it would lead to fairer representation. Second, it might encourage more collaboration between parties. And third, it could give smaller parties a better chance of having their voices heard. How'd I do?
That's spot on. You've really grasped the key points there. Now, let's dive a bit deeper into how this might actually be implemented in the UK. New Zealand made the switch to PR in 1996 after a public referendum. They use what's called a mixed-member proportional system, where voters get 2 votes, one for a local MP and one for a party.
Oh, that's interesting. So they managed to keep local representation while still achieving overall proportionality?
Exactly. It's like having your cake and eating it too. Now here's another question for you. What do you think might be the biggest challenge in implementing a system like this in the UK? Take a moment to ponder that.
Well, I imagine there would be significant resistance from those who benefit from the current system. Plus, it's a big change. People might be hesitant simply because it's unfamiliar.
You've hit the nail on the head there. Change is never easy, especially when it comes to something as fundamental as our voting system. But here's something to consider. A recent petition calling for electoral reform garnered over 2 million signatures. That suggests there's a real appetite for change out there.
Wow, 2 million signatures is no small number. It sounds like people are really craving more options, more voices in the political arena.
Absolutely. And it's not just about having more options. It's about creating a system where every vote truly counts. Imagine how that could transform political engagement. People might feel more motivated to vote if they knew their vote would directly contribute to representation, even if their preferred candidate doesn't win outright.
That's a powerful vision. It's clear that this isn't just about abstract political theory. It's about creating a system that better serves all members of society.
Exactly. And as we wrap up, I think that's the key takeaway here. While no electoral system is perfect, proportional representation offers a path to a more representative, more collaborative form of democracy. It's not just about changing a voting system. It's about reimagining what our democracy could be.
This has been such an enlightening discussion. Thank you for breaking it down so clearly.
Well, thank you for your insightful questions. And to our listeners, remember, democracy isn't static. It's something that evolves and improves over time. The transition to PR could be the next step in that evolution for the UK. So keep engaging, keep questioning, and keep pushing for a system that truly represents all of us. Until next time, this is Gen FM, signing off.